Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Maritime SoftwareHub. Today I'm really excited to be joined by Peter Mantel, who's the Chief Commercial Officer of Theyr, and he's going to tell us all about technology's impact on a net zero maritime industry. And we're going to also dive through his role as a CCO. So welcome to the show, Peter, even. That's a good start. Please, can you tell us a bit about yourself and a quick overview of who you are and what you do currently?
Yeah, again, thanks, Callum. Yeah, I've heard many different names, but I've never heard.
I was trying to get the name and the company right. Oh
Yeah,
dear.
that's absolutely okay. But no, listen, many thanks for the opportunity, Callum, and really a pleasure being here today and talk a bit about, the challenges we face in the industry and perhaps a little bit about myself as well. So I know one of the questions was to always share a bit of my background, right? And
Yeah,
maybe we
that's
kick
right.
off to that, but you probably can hear, born and raised and educated as well in the Netherlands. And although I've been living now in the UK for almost 20 years and have an English wife and English daughters, I'm still very much Dutch.
Okay.
So yeah, and as you can imagine with the upcoming Euros, right? If Holland were to play England at some stage of the tournament, that would cause some interesting tensions in our household. But
Yeah.
yeah, enough about football, I guess. But yeah, listen, a great upbringing, really. In all fairness, I grew up in a very nice, idyllic seaside village in the Netherlands, which was actually a wonderful place to grow up. As many young kids, I love my football,
Yeah.
but my father kind of insisted on getting an education first, and once you start going to university, introduced to alcohol, and then combining football and studies was difficult. So that went out of the window very quickly, and he pursued a football career. Um, Avid sailor, been always around boats from
Yeah.
a very young age onwards. During my summers, I used to go to the northern part of Holland, a place called Friesland, where you have wonderful lakes,
Oh,
and
lovely.
I kind of worked there as a sailing instructor all summers long. So that's kind of how it's kind of my love for boating kind of started. Another really important thing, and it's deeply rooted, of course, in my career and the direction I've taken was that shipping and maritime industry was deeply rooted in our family DNA, right? So you kind of grow up with that. My father was a captain, and once he became when he came ashore, he eventually became managing director of Radio Holland.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, we always had business people from all over the world around in the evenings for dinners, for socials. So you can imagine I really kind of grew up in that maritime business environment, so to speak. So
Yeah,
that's
no, I mean, it's a great introduction. And as you said, you're probably meeting people from all walks of life, all different
yeah.
nationalities.
Uh,
Great exposure. And what was your first kind of shore-based sort of formal role in kind of commercial shipping then?
yeah, well, of course, how did I really get started in shipping? I did go to quite a famous nautical institute in the Netherlands called Willem Barents, which is
Mhm.
located on one of the small islands north of Holland. It's a beautiful island to go on a summer holiday. And I sailed 8 years on Dutch merchant ships, predominantly campers and general cargo ships. So we're very lucky to travel all over the world. And I did that, yeah, for 8 years, and the last 3 years actually as chief officer. And when I came ashore, my first job was actually I was sent to the United States as an expat to Houston, and that was supposed to be for a 4 year term, but I ended up living in the United States for 12 years, all
Wow.
over the place. Yeah, from in the south to ended up in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle. And the last 3 years of my time in the States, I started Transit Marine USA. It's probably still a very well-known brand. And
Yeah.
this is really where I always started to get involved in already, a lot of talk about digital transformation, but we really, with Transit, we transformed basically, as we know, paper navigation to electronic navigation. So we're really driving and pioneering electronic navigation. I mean, I studied business administration in Houston at the University of Houston as well. And
Okay.
just at the change of the centuries in 2000, I moved back to Europe, England. I always had the intention to come back at some stage. England, as I understand now, is quite different than Holland, for example, but still here, a wonderful place to live and to grow family. But yeah, Francis basically moved me back to the UK because the headquarters of Francis was located in Southampton at the time,
Ah,
and I
is
became the global sales and marketing for Francis.
and is Transas, was that Enoram and turned into Vortzilla? Is that the same business or is that slightly different?
It was eventually acquired by Wärtsilä. So
That's
technology,
right.
now is Wärtsilä Voyage, that is really derived
Vortzilla
from the
Marine
original
now.
Francis navigation technologies and simulation technologies as well. So yeah, that's taken that over. Yeah.
Okay, no, interesting. Yeah, I remember. I mean, we've spoken to obviously Vortzilla in the past, and you see previously when they were working for Transas, let's say now it's sort of
Yeah.
part of the same company.
Yeah.
Very
That's correct.
interesting. So that was so you started off really in a sales function, and do you always enjoy the commercial side of shipping and generally
Yes, I
deal
really
making?
I love engaging with customers, understanding their requirements, and just really be out there, right? I'm much more external focused manager than internal, but obviously there's a lot of work to be done internal and looking at internal processes as well. But yeah, I'm a much more external focused manager, so to speak. Absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, we can touch on that a little bit later when we go into a bit more about your role. That'd be excellent. So can you give us an overview of Theyr? Make sure I pronounce that right. And yeah,
Fear?
Theyr. Okay, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's a hard one.
Okay.
Um,
It is.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, what the solution is really kind of focusing on, and yeah, the type of customers you work with, that sort of thing would be great.
So, yeah, I'll give a bit of background of Fear because it's really quite a wonderful story. And again, Fear, it's an ancient Icelandic wind, so to speak, right? So that's where the name was originated from. But Fear's been around almost 10 years now, but initially they were always focusing on the leisure market, right? And
Hmm.
they were providing grip, weather data overlays, and web mapping services linked to the leisure industry. And really the first really notable highlight of Fear became in 2016, if I get the date right. But basically, because every bit of software for weather overlays was built into every Raymarine multifunctional display. And
Oh,
of course,
right.
and
Okay.
again, also other customers included also Transys Marine. They had a fantastic app called iSailor, and they
Okay.
also use the Theyr weather overlay services in that solution. So yeah, Theyr again, they so I kind of became involved with Theyr and really started when I was managing director of D&T Smart. We were really looking for a solution that could provide high accuracy mid-ocean data to analyze vessel performance. Because again, we were driving digital transformation with D&T, getting basically transforming new reporting to automated high frequency data reporting, and we needed a system that could provide mid-ocean parameters virtually in real time at any point in the world. And Theyr actually developed that for us. And it's still with technology, which is very much part of our current solution as well. It's called VAX, actually. It's Rapid Data Access Service. So we can provide you mid-ocean data I just give you some numbers up to about 1,000 mid-ocean data points per millisecond. So it's
Okay.
virtually real time, and you really need that the mid-ocean parameters if you start looking at vessel performance in detail, because you need to know what weather is around the vessel at that given time. The story goes on then with Theyr. They kind of started to become a bit involved in commercial shipping, and this was really a turning point in 2019. Theyr and the University of Southampton applied for a sprint grant in the
Okay.
UK. And the sprint project was awarded in early 2020, and we actually successfully completed that in March 2021. Now, what was the sprint grant all about? We formed a unique collaboration with the Alan Turing Institute and the University of Southampton, and we used a truly multi-objective genetic algorithm to be applied towards marine applications, right? And this was quite unique because weather routing, as we know, it's all based on single objective algorithms. And this is something new, developed for over a decade in the Alan Turing Institute. And we're very lucky under that collaboration to apply it to marine applications. And also quite unique is as well that a lot of these funded projects, they kind of die in duty, so to speak, right? At the end of the grant, it's put on the shelf and people continue with other stuff. But we managed to commercialize it. and the rest is kind of history, right? It's a wonderful story, and we launched the commercialized version. We only sell it through APIs, right?
Yeah.
So for our partners to integrate the API in their platforms, we signed to 30 strategic partners. And of course, one of our first partners was a great partner to have was Euronav. Much
Yes.
thanks to them, because throughout the validation process, we worked very closely together to commercialize the optimization engine as well. And Euronav is still one of our largest customers. And they benchmarked it for over a year, right, and compared it to other solutions on the market. And there really was no comparison if you're looking at potential latent savings that could be achieved and using proper multi-objective optimization algorithms.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, so great story. Yep.
Excellent. Well, I mean, we keep seeing kind of different strategic partnerships pop up, and I guess on the weather routing side, did I see Conspire? Is that someone you partnered with in the past?
Yeah, Spire is one of our great partners as well.
Oh, good. Okay.
If you look at weather at voice optimization, right, you need very good weather. So we believe that Spire provides the most accurate weather forecast. So weather is a very important part if you're looking at the overall computation on optimized voice. It's the same as with ship dynamic models. Because you can have the best optimization engine if the weather or the weather forecast is inaccurate or the models are really good enough.
Yes.
And you're missing latent savings really you can achieve by so it's really almost a triangle. It's the engine itself, it's the weather, and it's of course also the quality of the ship's dynamic model.
Okay. No, excellent. All right, and you touched on our next sort of topic to discuss. So we're looking at obviously driving net zero in maritime. So how do you think the voyage optimization, obviously with technology, can help this?
Yeah, no, can it help? Absolutely, right. And yeah, let me take you back in time just a little bit, right? Because there is always a story to tell, right? And certainly on weather optimization or voice optimization as such. And we all know weather routing, right? Been around for decades. And really, it was quite revolutionary when it came to the market, right? Because now all of a sudden we could basically safely route ships, especially container ships, to avoid sort of weather conditions. But once revolutionary, it's now really considered outdated technology because traditional weather routing solutions, they only focus really on one process, is to optimize for weather and safety.
Yeah.
And this day and age, every nautical mile and every knot impacts efficiency, safety, right? So a single objective approach, i.e. just optimizing for weather, is no longer sufficient really. And then it started to evolve a little bit. You kind of got an introduction of called weather voyage optimization solutions, right? They tried to really excel weather-centric solutions. They started building some functionality on top of the original traditional weather routing solutions. And it's still widely used, and sometimes it's a confusing terminology. You talk about voyage optimization and weather optimization. But again, they're all single objective algorithms, right? And they're really incapable considering alternative inputs and certainly also simultaneous outputs. And we've seen so many new companies coming on the market, calling it voyage optimization, and they promise improvement on efficiencies and the reduction of carbon footprint. But most solutions, in all fairness, and even like the traditional weather routing, they're all based on single objective algorithms. And if you look at it really from a holistic point of view, shipping is no longer a single objective challenge, right? There are multiple objectives you got to consider in computational and voice optimization. Otherwise, you just not take advantage of the technology that's available now. Yeah, I can talk about this for hours, but just to tell you a little bit about why we believe we're so unique, right, Callum? It's Theyr, and again, in partnership with the Alan Turing Institute and the University of Southampton, we have the only truly multi-objective algorithm on the market. And what is multi-objective genetic algorithm? It's a mouthful. It's quite simple, actually, right? It creates a set of potential solutions. It evolves these calculations over time. It's using actually evolution-inspired techniques, right, such as mutation and crossover. And he keeps repeating that over time and over the entire voyage until he finds a set of optimal solutions, which are voyages, which are all equal in terms of the objective. Right? This is a really important sentence here. And effectively, it's the survival of the fittest, right? So it calculates the first step, 4 voyages that get done, and it keeps repeating that process over time for multiple objectives. And it's just incredible powerful, these algorithms, right? I give you some numbers. It does compute in one computation over 1 billion data points, 14 million data points, and it's looking at, on average, to about 400,000 potential voyages, right? In one computation. And all that is done now, it depends a bit obviously on the length of the voyage, but between 30 seconds and a minute and a half, max 2 minutes, if you look at the 40-day voyage. And when we initially came to market, that computation would take almost 10 minutes, right? That people are impatient, and even though the computational power behind it is incredible, but there's also a human aspect. They want to click and they want to get some results like quite quickly. But so we made huge improvements over the last years as well, certainly on efficiencies of the computational time.
And sorry to interrupt you. Who is setting those objectives per voyage? Is it the voyage manager? Is it the technology team? Both?
Yeah, listen, again, this depends really who uses the technology, right? You have owners, you have charterers, you have fleet managers, so they all have their own objectives, and the people's optimization engine gives that opportunity to pick which objective really applies to your really what you're trying to achieve on a certain voyage. So they all have different objectives. But the engine you can optimize for minimum fuel, best time, just-in-time arrival. You can optimize the time prior to equipment, which typically is what the owner's interest. Yeah. You can even optimize for charter party compliance. You can optimize for best CI, so you have multiple objectives, and it really depends on the user or the voyage that vessel is undertaking. So you have a choice of objectives depending really what you want to achieve on that voyage.
Yeah, and like profitability, would that be one as well? Like with the routing in particular?
Listen, weather routing is always included in every computation we do, but you get the objectives on top of that. Minimum fuel obviously improves the efficiencies, it reduces the carbon footprint. The fuel bill can potentially be reduced by some significant margin, right? So it's always efficiencies. And again, sometimes there's other commercial objectives driving that route. A ship has to be there at a given time because the cargo is ready or the cargo needs to be unloaded or discharged. So again, the objectives may vary from voyage to voyage.
And they would stop when it gets to the port, would they? Or do you have any objective links to kind of like with demurrage and calling time in a port, or is it more specifically for the voyage?
It's evolving over time, everything what we do, right? And how we add more objectives to it. At the moment, what we do is we can optimize the charter party compliance dynamically. This is a big change rather than doing it at the end of the voyage, typically when charter party claims are calculated. So you can actually avoid certain charter party claims. Too many ships still leave with a charter party speed is 1 speed, right? Where it's really crazy if you think about it, because it can actually damage the CI rating of the vessel, right? They could have optimized the speed if you're already sailing in bad weather, for example. So and that again, they can, and all that stuff is related to charter party compliance and agreements, right? So to some extent, we're already deeply involved in that. Port optimization itself is an area we're looking at with some partners as well. What we do, it's really interesting, is that some ports now start giving berth slots when they 6-7 days out of arriving to port. So then you can take that time and you edit in the objective multi-objective algorithm. Said, okay, this is my desired time of arrival, and then it optimizes the remaining part of the voyage to get there at that specific time. You've been advised by the port. So we're moving also slowly into port optimization as well, but that requires a lot of expertise in port optimization itself, and there's some companies who are focusing on that.
Okay, fascinating. No, it's so many different areas of the voyage life cycle that is now impacted by technology, and improvements are being made. So really interesting. And I think you touched upon it earlier, but looking at alternative fuels in also as another way of driving the net zero. I mean, do you believe that'll significantly help, or do you think technology is the answer to help, as opposed to a different type of fuel or a mixture of both?
Probably a mixture of everything, right? But it's really difficult to say at the moment. And there's a lot of investment at the moment on alternative fuels, right? It's becoming an industry on its own, so to speak. Of course, low carbon alternative for fuel will allow for an immediate decrease in your carbon emissions, right? However, these fuels are costly, they are expensive, right? It can really result in difficult operational challenges, and we will most likely face supply chain logistic problems, right? So potentially shortages to meet an ever increasing demand. So it looks like it's a viable solution. However, there are no clear winners yet, right? And this is the interesting point, because all have pros and cons from cost to the availability, again, the logistic chain behind getting fuels all over the world. So there's still a lot of work to be done. And it causes some problems as well, right? Because owners can end up with fuel shortages or really very expensive operational costs in the future. And even now, when you want to build new ships, there's capacity for more tonnage. What kind of ship are you building now, right? This is a really difficult question at the moment. So I think you got to look at it a bit more holistic as well and look at other technologies, right? In all fairness, most engines are already very fuel efficient, right? But then you have other technologies like air lubrication, new ultrasonic engine fouling, for example, they're hitting the market, and they all improve the vessel's operational efficiency, right? But all in all, will they? I think you need to combine them really, right? And I don't think there's one solution that fits all. And I think it's really a combination of technologies. Look at wind power right now. That's really a viable alternative, right? And you don't have these uncertainties around future fuel sources and alternative fuels, because wind energy is there, it's free in principle, right? And it's a really reliable source of energy without the requirements for an additional infrastructure, so to speak. So there's wind. And again, you look at voyage optimization solutions, right? They've proven to be highly effective, provided they're implemented correctly with the proper weather, forecast resolution and proper ship hydrodynamic model. So you're going to see a new era almost of multi-objective voyage optimization solutions that are commercially available now. And we have seen, and there's benchmarking products that proper vessel optimization can reduce the vessel's carbon footprint by as much as 60%, and these are significant numbers. So it's really a combination, right? But and sometimes everybody's talking about alternative fuels where they're almost ignoring really good solutions on the market that are readily available. And they're available with minimum capital expenditure, and you can effectively start tomorrow if you would want to. So it would be great to see a bit more emphasis, certainly on voyage optimization, because there's a lot of latent savings at the moment. Very few shipping companies or charters are really exploring that. And maybe one more thing, right, Callum?
Yeah, sure.
On alternative fuels. I mean, like I said, there's no clear winner yet, but maybe a bit controversial. But I really think that nuclear more and more becomes, or seems to become, a viable option, right? And of course, we gotta deal with public perception, right, of safety concerns. I think the industry and regulators have to establish a framework that you can safely and properly dispose the waste it generates. But it's amazing, right? You can run a VLCC for 20 years on nuclear, and you create a little troop this big, right? That is your waste, right? So there's of course a lot of public perception, right, and on the waste disposal issue. So, but I think it's a combination of everything, really, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, back in my broking days, LNG was obviously the big area. Lots of investment, early 2000s and later on. I did a bit of work experience at Moran Gas years ago, and that was very much in the early days. And I don't understand why LNG isn't taken off. Is it scarcity? Is it too expensive or not as efficient?
It's interesting, right? And there are, of course, fuel type engines, right, where they can switch to LNG. It's the storage perhaps as well, and it's actually interesting because even in the Netherlands it became quite popular, right? You got these cars, they had LNG tank in the boot, and they were switching over, and but it kind of disappeared in certainly in the motor industry, yeah. And but like I say, they all have pros and cons, right? From storage requirements to safety issues on board the vessels, etc., etc. But yeah, there are some options.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
okay, and then I guess if we talk about the end user, so we took a look at the ship owners, the charterers, let's say. I mean, how can they access like these ins? Obviously, there's lots of reports out there and advisors, but how can they kind of get transparent kind of information and data? Do you think, like in this market where there's lots of different sources of information and technology vendors started up?
Yeah, yeah. I think that transparency always has been an issue between charterers and owners, right? Because they have really different objectives, and but it's getting a lot better. And again, technology plays an important role in that. But I remember actually my BMT days, we were working very closely with a large charter, right? And in the charter party agreement, it was actually stipulated that they needed to have a data acquisition technology system on board for monitoring purposes. So that was written in. So any owner who wanted to have a long-term charter with this company needed to install a data acquisition system. So that all happened quite quickly, and then the data only went to the charter. And of course, the owner said, hey, at some stage they started to realize, because they're getting these reports from the charter, right? Either overperforming, underperforming, right? So they then requested that data, and of course, then you became in this argument who owns the data, right? Coming from the ships. It's a really interesting story, but I think technology really should improve transparency between owners and charters, and you can even see it through charter party agreements, right? There are different objectives for both of them. If you look at a time charter, for example, right? They agree on a vessel speed and performance, and then they typically instruct an independent company. A lot of them still the weather companies.
Yeah.
To ensure that the vessel is routed in a safe manner, and at the end of the day, they provide the post-voyage analysis, right? And that's typically when charter party claims are calculated. But the problem is the ships are instructed typically for one speed, which is the charter party speed. But it creates a problem for both owners and charters, right? Because if you look at it, reality, most voyages are encountering more bad weather, right, than good weather. So just taking that into consideration, the vessel is not optimized for the conditions that are actually met during the transit, right? So what happens? It results in slower passages and higher fuel consumption, generally for the charter, but it also affects the owner, right? Because if the fuel consumption goes up and you don't optimize for the voyages in transit, money is left on the table and a CI rating for the owner goes up. So they arguably end up with a ship after a charter with a very poor CI rating. Now, if you do that dynamically, you can share the data to both charter and owner. There's a lot more transparency that can work together, A, to be in compliance, but also to take care of the environment and get there as efficient as we can. So it will change. It is changing, actually. Yeah.
Even the actual charter party themselves being online, electronic, like companies like Vesson and C, Maritime, those guys having platforms where it's all very much laid out, structured on, as opposed to printing everything out, signing different brokers and things. So it's all there online and it's growing.
It is. It is.
So, okay. Anything else you'd like to share about our kind of main topic about driving kind of net zero in maritime for the moment?
Listen, we can talk about it for a long time, right, Callum? But I think really that certainly, and this is not trying to promote fear, but multi-objective voyage optimization should play an important part in reducing the carbon footprint. It's proven. There is skepticism because other companies have made promises about potential savings which were never able to prove that or to be realized, right? Because either it wasn't implemented properly. But I hope the industry really starts seriously considering that, because it's there. And again, you don't need huge capital expenditure to roll it out on your fleet. And quite often as well, what we see is, or they buy technology and they don't really implement it properly, right? So we kind of not really properly used, because even new technologies, right? You need to get buy-in from the user, which is typically the crew on board of the vessel. And again, you have captains, they've done that North Atlantic crossings, they've done hundreds of them, and you advise a route which doesn't really look right at first sight. They will question it, right? And you need to have a behavior change. You've got to manage that change and how to use technology. And that's still a big area where we can make massive improvements, so to speak, by implementing technology in the correct way. Because too often it's done incorrectly, and then again, it defeats the purpose.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, let's dive on to the second sort of half of the chat and talk about your role in particular. Yeah. Chief Commercial Officer, obviously within the maritime technology, and obviously I've seen you've had exposure on the Classification Society as well. Yep. So you've got some really good insights. But can you just give us an overview of what your role, primarily the main sort of duties and responsibilities are at the moment as a CCO?
Yeah, at Theyr, I assume, right, Callum?
Yes, yes.
Listen, I mean, which is the nice bit, right? Because in many respects, we kind of still have started in commercial shipping, right? Even though they've been around already and worked in the recreational industry for many years. But as far as commercial shipping, we've been now actively engaged in commercial shipping and providing solutions for just 2 years. So we're relatively small but very lean organization. And what do I do? My role covers almost every aspect of the business, right? From writing and implementing and managing business plans and budgets. Love, obviously, to be involved in sales, actually sales, which is manageable because we have a B2B strategy. So we don't really go directly to end users like shipping companies and owners. So we don't need a global sales organization, so to speak, right? We have some key account managers and they can manage our B2B partners, so to speak. So, but it's really almost every aspect of the business, from commercial licensing agreements, provide leadership, obviously, which is very important. Give input in the product roadmap, obviously, with the experience we have, and engaging with customers. What do we develop next? How does our roadmap look like? So it's a little bit of everything, really, which is nice, which is really nice. And it's not really capped, right? Where you have a clear job description with a large operation. If you go a bit right, you get a slap on your fingers. No, this is all hands on deck. Right?
And how do you think your role would be different, either compared to where you are now or where you've been in the past? So say if you're in a more corporate, larger business as a chief commercial officer versus more of a tech startup, what do you think the dynamic would be like?
You got a lot more flexibility and you can be much more agile, right? This is really the uniqueness, right? And you have to be that as well as a startup. You have to be agile. You have to be able to quickly produce new versions, right? So we can go to market much faster than the larger corporate organization, because everything needs to go through multiple levels of approval, and sometimes even simple approvals can take up to 6 months, right? And that's the nice thing about working in startup, relatively small companies, is the agility, how you can bring new technology to market, which I think is great.
Yeah, no, I agree. And sometimes things need board approval, that sort of stuff. So decisions and even hiring can be so you can. Obviously, large companies can move quickly as well, but in generally, if you're a bit more agile and you've got the sort of the funding and someone really, really promising comes along, you can bite the bullet and go for them quicker, which is really good.
It's true, but you also reach some kind of crossroads where even in startups you need to have processes, you need to have approval processes in place, because otherwise you can't manage the growth. And of course, these larger corporations, they employ hundreds to thousands of people, so there has to be a proper structure in place, right? And to some extent, that will create bureaucracy. It's inevitable. Otherwise, you can't manage the company. And even for small startups, in order to manage growth, you got to really start implementing the processes, approvals. Who makes approvals on big decisions, for example, right? These are really important as well, even in startups.
And we haven't discussed this question, but like in general, in a SaaS startup, let's say, so we hear lots about different funding rounds, seeds, funding. Can you just give a quick overview for some of our listeners that maybe are more from the commercial shipping side or the technical shipping side that don't really understand what's involved with how a company acquires finances and goes through their kind of development cycle. Is it right? Just a quick overview.
Yeah.
Big question.
No, really. I think it's actually, I like that question because, uh, listen, there's different ways to start companies, right? And startups, and we've seen examples in the maritime industry as well, where some ideas are born and they're very clever people and they manage to get huge investment, right? Even without the technology being proven, so to speak, that it really can deliver. And we've seen examples like Nautilus Labs, right? From a lot of noise, huge investment behind it to really, you know, become insolvent, right? And that's the same. And I think that generally speaking in the maritime industry, a lot of new startups, a lot of new tech companies hitting the market with arguably very good ideas. We're very fortunate at Theyr. We're completely bootstrapped, which is unique, right?
Yeah,
But
fantastic.
at the same time, we can maintain our agility to make decisions fast and really be in charge of our own destiny. At times it's difficult because we all could arguably do with some more operational capital. We can grow a bit faster, but we do it all organically, and I think it's a good place to be. What I think as well is happening at the maritime industry at the moment with startups. They have this false sense of expectation levels, right? They all think they can get multiples of 20 times their revenue, and it just doesn't work like that. And you see now, even after some large companies, right, and again, not delivering to their shareholders, right, they will pull the plug. And I think it's cooled down a little bit, right, for the start of what they actually can get by investors, and the due diligence process is becoming more thorough, technical due diligence becoming very thorough processes. So the time that startup thinks they got a great idea and they get a multiple, of 15 on the revenue these days are over, and it's cooling down a little bit. And don't forget the maritime industry on its own, right? There's 60,000 commercial IMO vessels, so it is a somewhat limited market. So quite often these companies are overvalued, right? And very quickly after a year or two of trading, these investors realize that, listen, it's going to be difficult to get my anticipated return on investment. So we got to be a bit more reasonable, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's trickled down to our recruitment space in particular. I mean, we saw 2020 to kind of 2022, there was a lot of hiring happening, lots of vacancies.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So very good for us, obviously. But like, but
But
yeah,
do you
it's
see a decline a little bit now as well, or and certainly the rate? Because
yeah.
if you hire a sales director, right, a good one with some experience, you're easily looking at, certainly in the K, a starting salary of what, 100K? But that's a big, you know,
Yeah,
salary for startups, right? There's very few startups who can afford these kind of salaries, right? Because,
definitely.
yeah,
There was lots of like 2022 was a really strong year. So you'd have lots of
yeah,
established businesses having recruitment processes, making offers, and all of a sudden these companies with cash rich come along, swoop them up for 10, 20,000 higher, and then 9 months later they're not at that company anymore. Unfortunately, and we've seen it happen. Last year in particular, 2023 was a tough year in our niche in particular, mainly because a lot of companies their funding was actually either restricted, so
yeah,
there were a few redundancies across some pretty big players. But now I think it's on the way up. It's looking more
right.
positive. There's a bigger spotlight on decarbonisation. I know that it's been big the last few years anyway, but even more so, I think, especially looking at Posidonia, every other store was a decarbonisation solution of some sort. So yeah, it's looking positive, I think.
Yeah, I think the startup bubble and the investment has cooled down perhaps a little bit, right, the last 2 years, and with some substantial companies really going out of business, and that makes everybody think twice, right? But I do agree, it's great. We have, and again, legislation now pushing this digital transformation, right? We have real targets we got to meet. Can they be met? Absolutely, but they got to focus on it, right, and really start working towards achieving those really net zero industry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And EU ETS, obviously, that's been a
yeah,
big factor as well.
yeah,
So yeah, the renewable side of shipping is growing definitely, and like decarbonisation sort of data insight platforms and companies, not just shipping, but also for energy. We're speaking to more and more of those lately. So, yeah, it's very positive. Okay, sorry, I digressed a little bit, but excellent. So I guess for any aspiring C-suite kind of executives, maybe that have had a career in sales or some form of commercial role, do you have any tips for them? Maybe that they're kind of trying to get their level to the top table?
Listen, I firmly believe that make sure you work in an industry you really like, right? I think that probably goes without saying. And again, I've been in shipping now for almost 40 years, right? And I've seen very few people leave the maritime industry. So once in shipping, always in shipping, right? It's quite a unique and really exciting business to be in. But what other, for exact. If we talk about shipping, I always say try to become a domain expert, right? And there's because that really sets you apart a little bit as well. You can have all the skill sets, right, from a business point of view, but you also really need to have a good, deep understanding of domain expertise. Talking about that, one of really great books to read if in shipping is Martin Scottford, right? He's written some really great books on maritime economics. If you read that, you will have a different view of how everything works. They're great books to read, to educate yourself a bit. What else? Find companies that share your values, right, and your morals, and be always true to yourself. I think goes a long way as well. And maybe lastly, but also very important, I think keep reinventing yourself as well, right? Because it's important, and keep educating yourself. It's world is changing, technology is changing rapidly. Stay on top of it, really.
Yeah, that's actually a big part of the reason why I enjoy this podcast in particular. You can look up websites and different businesses and things, but when you actually speak to them, you learn so much more about what their solution is and who their target customers are and the value and stuff. So I'm always learning on this, on these discussions. So it's really valuable. And I guess on the flip side of that, so there's sort of tips to help people, but what are the sort of challenges that you regularly face when you get to more of a senior executive type of position?
Yeah, listen, it depends a bit who you work with, but of course on large companies, it's stakeholder management really important, right? And quite often you find yourself spending more time and focus on satisfying the shareholders, so to speak, right? Providing reports or back yourself to the headquarters explaining why he didn't make certain KPIs that month. That can be very time consuming. Really what challenges certainly at the moment with Theyr, we now at the point we've been growing so quickly the last 2 years, we really got to manage growth, right? It's really important to get to that next level. You always reach that level, you want to go bigger, you got to really manage the growth. So that's probably the biggest challenge at the moment for me, but it depends a little bit who you work with, right? So yeah, but at the same time, managing growth, I would say that it's a luxury problem at the same time. It's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. Well, I think that was very, very, very interesting, and I'm sure it'll be very helpful to our audience. So, anything else you'd like to share before we say goodbye? I know I always like to ask people about their hobbies and their interests, and you said obviously sailing. So, is there anything outside of sailing you really like to enjoy?
Oh, yeah, listen, I think we started in the beginning of the podcast, right? I always loved football, and like many kids in Holland, we always thought we had a potential professional career ahead of us. But that didn't really work out. But I always been quite sporty as well. I've done practiced taekwondo for many years.
Oh wow!
Did obtain a second degree black belt as well. But I started to get too many injuries right off the tournament, and you couldn't show up on a Monday morning with a black eye or on practice because you got hurt. So I gave that up quite some time ago. But martial arts, apart from staying fit, right, they really shape you as a person as well, because if you just look at the tenets of taekwondo, for example, there's 5 tenets, right? It's honor, courtesy, integrity, perseverance, and self-control, right? Okay. And these are really quite important tenets, right? And if you can follow those and implement those in your own life and in your business, it will go a long way, in a positive manner. So I think sports, I love travel. Speak multiple languages, which I think really widens the horizon, generally speaking. you go on holiday, you can make friends with locals. They can advise you the best place to eat, right? It's just widens your horizons, and but I think it's important to have an outlet for the stress. We all get stressed at times, right? So what do? I try to get a few runs in every week, little ones. I don't do the long marathon ones anymore, but 5-6K runs a couple of times a week, and then to de-stress. And then what do I do in the weekend? I go play golf, pick
Oh,
up more
nice.
stress and frustration level. But yeah. So that's a bit
Good.
about myself as well.
Excellent. No, it sounds like you lead a very interesting life, an active life, which is very good to hear. And no, honestly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And hopefully we'll get to speak to you more in the future. And any questions, just feel free to reach out. But what's the best way for our audience to get in touch with you if they'd like to have a chat?
Yeah, listen, they can always reach out, right? I don't know if you post my email address, right? It's peter.mantel@theyr.com.
Okay, yes.
Or look me up on LinkedIn. Just reach out. Always happy to have a chat.
Excellent. Great. Well,
Always
thank you
available.
so much again, Peter.
Yeah, thank you very much, Callum, again. Really enjoyed it. I hope the listeners enjoyed as well. And I wish everybody a bon voyage.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much.